What is your favorite? And that's why we had to put this sign up story. His first day of kindergarten, my brother thought he could escape during recess by trying to climb this massive chain link fence. He got up about 8 feet before the lunch ladies noticed and disciplined him. The aides sent him to the principal's office, and when questioned why he did it, my little smartest 5-year-old brother replied that there was no sign that said you can't climb it. There is now a sign. Was chatting with students in the lounge area when all of a sudden, we hear an incredibly loud bang. Turns out that another new student had been texting while walking to our center's demo room and totally missed the fact that the room's walls are all panes of glass, so she ultimately face planted in front of me and my group. Not the first time this has happened, but this was enough to warrant a "Caution, glass ahead" sign. From my father, he was eating at a seafood restaurant and had to pee. There was a sign on the door to the bathroom that said something like, "If you ate this dish then wash your hands before using the bathroom." My father, being male and my father, laughed it off and stepped inside to use the urinal. There was a moment when he was peeing and fine, and then there became the moment when he felt like his deck was on fire. So he ran to the sinks and stared splashing water on his junk, which also splashed his face. So he in a very Home Alone style grabbed his face in an OMG fashion, which then started to burn his eyes. So he was there for a very long time splashing water up and down trying to control the burn. Eventually he returned to the table, paid, and left. Obviously there was a reason why the sign existed, and he was just an extension of it. Hatch, New Mexico is famous for its chili peppers. People make pilgrimages from all over the country to buy them. If you have never had Hatch chili pepper, seriously go get some now. They're frigging awesome. If you go there on your own personal pepper pilgrimage, you'll notice that a few of the pepper vendors have signs in their bathrooms that read "wash hands" before using the facilities. A lot of tourists including me learned that lesson the hard way. Ed spent most of the morning handling peppers, sampling pepper jellies, pepper gummies, tasting pepper infused wine, etc. I went into the bathroom, whipped out Mr. Happy, and proceeded to do my business. Let's just say that Hatch chili peppers have a little heat on them. Through my cousin who managed a restaurant for years, on the hostess stand at the front they had a sign that said "We smoke our meats with premium apple wood." A small bowl of the wood chips they used placed right in front of it. The amount of people who would take a wood chip and try to eat it was staggering. It got to the point they had to keep a bag of the wood chips in the cabinet of the hostess stand. People would sometimes put them in their mouth and spit it out embarrassed and try to cover it up. Some would laugh and say I shouldn't have had that last drink. Others would turn around, double down, and try to give the saliva covered chip to the hostess, then complain that these mints are disgusting. So there is now another sign beside the bowl that says "Wood chips do not eat" in red letters. Makes for fun conversation every night for the hostesses seating people who are new to the restaurant. Unfortunately they still need to keep an extra bag of wood chips in the stand and people still think they look like a great after dinner snack. Now when the double downers complain, the hostess just points to the sign and laughs. People never cease to amaze. At a seminar on new colostomy supplies, there was a sticker on the colostomy bag collar, the part your modified intestine sticks through, stating that the colostomy was not to be used for sexual pleasure. I don't know the backstory, but according to a doctor I know, it's disturbingly common for people to catch STDs in their colostomy hole because, well, I had to learn that, so you'll do too. I work at the dining hall at my university and was cleaning the salad bar when I noticed a small fire coming from our toaster off. After running to find my manager, we eventually put it out. Turns out some guy stuck a piece of pie in there with a paper plate and the entire thing bursted into flames. "Please only put bread in the toaster" became the new sign. We have one of those at work. Hotel guests can be hella dumb because since the very first day we got this fancy ass toaster that works like a conveyor belt, people try to put everything through it. Paper plates, waffles with syrup, eggs, pastries. Y'all, if you wouldn't put it in a standard toaster, don't put it in this one. It still melts and burns things. One day I noticed that they had drained cleaned, and refilled the pool at my apartment complex. A few days later I noticed a new sign on the pool area gate that said persons with active diarrhea or who have had diarrhea in the past 48 hours are not permitted to enter the pool. My husband and I moved into our first home. It was a completely renovated, amazingly cool house. We knew the previous owner flipped it, and it was a bona fide bachelor pad, leather bar, pinball machine, blow under lighting, and a kitchen/bathroom, hot tub, the whole 9 yards. A few weeks after moving and we noticed people kept stopping by the house asking for Alex. We told them he didn't live here anymore, and they always would ask if we had his new address. They were nice enough, but it was starting to get annoying. One Tuesday evening around 11 o'clock we were falling asleep on the couch and all of a sudden some guy strung out appeared in our living room. He opened the sliding door right next to us and walked in asking for Alex. My husband stood up and was like, WTF, Alex doesn't live here anymore, tell all your friends, and the guy left. We learned the next day from our neighbors that Alex was the local drug kingpin in the area and frequently had his unsavory clientele over to pick up product here at all hours of the day/night. That weekend we put up a sign that said Alex doesn't live here, went out and got a massive Rottweiler. We named him Alex. Well, where the duck did your dog live? Not necessarily a sign we put up, but worked with an assistant manager at Sonic who had poured degreaser in her drink and proceeded to drink it to claim that someone had tried poisoning her, and of course upon reviewing the infamous non-working camera system and watching her poison herself, every employee at that point had to sign paperwork stating we would not drink cleaning chemicals. Edit. I originally put Sonic, but it was actually Subway. I worked at Sonic afterward. I work in an office, and in the bathroom we have a sign that says "please don't flush printer paper, throw your divorce papers in the trash." Now every time someone in our office has to use the bathroom we say "I gotta go flush these divorce papers." When I was in the 4th grade during art class I drew a Minecraft creeper drawing on construction paper. Later me and my friends went to use the bathroom, and I still had the drawing in my hands. So I decided to lay the drawing into the urinal, just to be funny. Then one of my friends flushed the urinal. The paper didn't let the water go through whole of the urinal, so we decided to start flushing it over and over again, and the water began to overflow the bowl and onto the floor. Then one of the teachers got suspicious to why she heard laughing and yelling in the bathroom. She came in and saw what we were doing and went out and told every adult she could see, and more teachers came in and took us into the principal's office. We all blamed it on each other, and most of us got suspended, including me. Someone shat in a urinal every block over the course of 2 weeks without anyone noticing. After it was cleaned, a sign was put up saying, "Please do not put things in the urinal." The sign was promptly found inside the urinal. I live in Vancouver, where the incident happened where the sea lion grabbed that girl and dragged her underwater and the grandpa had to save her. In the area where that happened there's a sign that says "No feeding the sea lions" as a visual depiction. Haven't been back in a while, but I'm pretty sure it's still there. My stepdad worked at a shipping yard, and they had to put cylindrical tanks in one of 2 spots indicating whether they were full of gas or empty. So one day, the boss asks a guy to wield 2 signs, one saying full and the other saying empty. This guy wasn't all there, and he did create the signs and showed them off to the boss. The first one was well made, full, it said. The second one, mount. They all found it so funny they kept it that way. There is a bad habit among the shop workers of my area at least. When an oxygen or acetylene bottle is empty, they take a paint marker and weight mount on the tank. It's really obnoxious, because those tanks get reused all the time, so when they come back full it's still read mount. We had one guy get written up because he took a wire wheel brush on a grinder to erase it. It was acetylene, and it was very much full. Don't take power tools to explosive tanks, kids. It's a ducking dumb move. 3 times over the winter, I took my kid to the zoo and there was a volunteer standing at a certain spot of the gorilla enclosure, showing one of the gorilla's videos on her phone. He was very interested in videos of other gorillas, and it was mental stimulation for him, she would tell us. The gorilla would sit very close to the glass to see her phone. She was dressed just like a volunteer and talked like one too. Turns out she wasn't a volunteer. Turns out watching YouTube is bad for gorillas. There is now a sign saying, "Don't show videos to the gorillas. It has a negative impact on their relationship with their family." They see hotter gorillas on TV and develop unreasonable standards for their wives, slowly becoming emotionally distant. They had to put up a large sign at a local nursing home saying basically don't let people out the door to outside without checking with staff. Evidently a resident, in a gown and wheelchair, asked a visitor to hold the door with an alarm and a keypad/code to open for them, and the person did. The staff ran out and got the patient at the end of the driveway about to push out into traffic. The visitor actually said, "I didn't know she wasn't allowed out." This is a second/third hand story, so I DK the validity. I have heard of some retirement homes that will have a bus stop built on the sidewalk between the main building and the road, and it has a big sign saying bus stop on it. So if a person slips out, they often would get to the bus stop and then sit down to wait for the bus. Staff would keep an eye on the bus stop and round up anybody that was out there waiting for the bus. The real bus stop was on the street, and you had to walk a little bit further to get to it. People massively bringing dogs to the park, despite of a big no dogs sign. The locals say the sign is too high and dogs cannot see it. Mainland Chinese tourists cheating in and around the Louvre. They had to put signs up in Mandarin that say that these areas are not placed to defecate. As someone from mainland China, I'm almost always disgusted by our country's tourists. There's this knick-knack shop in my hometown that has a decorative basket of colorful beads/soaps or whatever, and above it, they had this sign that said "Do not eat," because years ago there was some kid that tried to eat them and kept popping them into his mouth one after another. I was like 5, and they looked like some dope ass candy, don't you judge me. So for some reason in my neighborhood, people systematically seem to target our mailbox when they are out walking their dogs. Their dogs need to pee. This has built into an issue, as it has rotted the wood out, and we've already replaced the post once because of this. So put up a big flamboyant sign that reads, "Warning, chemically treated, hazardous to animals." It's done its job, and of course there's no actual hazard. Edit. Forgot to mention, it's not just the mailbox that suffers. My brothers and I planted several flowers and small bushes for my mother that had meaning to her. These have all unfortunately died due to the neighbors, despite our attempts to keep them alive. We have a sign on our fuel island, raised concrete with the fuel pumps on it, that you cannot walk on it to get across. You have to walk around. Someone was going to walk across it, fell and broke their hip. Also there's now fencing to stop you. My favorite mostly because it happened to me, but not because it was a great experience. Lol, when I was about 6, we lived across the street from a park and my sister and I would go play over there all the time, of course. On this particular summer day, we had our best friends over, who also happened to be sisters. My best friend and I decide to go back across the street to get some popsicles, and my mother is across the street to supervise the crossing. This was a useless effort, because I had stepped between the cars parked on my side of the street to check if the coast was clear. I was too short to see over them, and I got hit by a car. I was in the hospital for a month, because my skull was cracked for the second time in my life. Lol. Anyway, after that, they put up a sign that said "Slow children at play." We moved shortly after all this, but it's still there, and whenever I pass it, I'm reminded that it's there because of me. Once, a toilet was so severely clogged, they tried everything, but it was impossible to fix it. So, plumbers came and opened the whole pipe to fix it. Surprisingly, a slipper was found inside the toilet, and no one knew what happened to the slipper to be found inside a toilet pipe. So, they posted the sign saying not to flush anything except what to be expected to flush. Not a sign, but I was going through a military school in Alabama when a classmate asked for a ride to a local bar so she could line dance. It was her preferred exercise, and she was jonesing. So I took her, being the only person available with a privately owned vehicle. She danced for a couple of hours, teach a new line dance night, on a Wednesday, as I recall. Then I said it was time to go back to our lodging, because I was tired. I added that I would be leaving town that weekend. but had noticed a mechanical bull in the corner. It was just sitting there that night, but I bet they had it going on the weekend, and all she had to do was tell the fighter pilots in the room about the mechanical bull and she would have a ride to the bar to line dance to her heart's content that weekend. She agreed it was a good idea. I came back Monday morning and was met by a couple of greetings that went something like, "Did you hear about James?" I said no, and they said they had to hurry, but we could talk later. I caught the third person who said that and asked what, specifically, had happened. She began with, "Well see, Amy suggested this great bar across town, where there was a mechanical bull." Turns out, James had ridden well and long, being fairly athletic, and having not had much to drink, and they had cranked up the volume, if you follow. Had been doing great until his right foot had become wedged between the pedestal and the saddle at precisely the moment he had pitched his body left to counterbalance the buck of the saddle, and snap snap. The x-ray showed that had snapped both lower leg bones, and the fibula was aligned with the tibia, while the lower tibia was tenting his skin. He ended up on a morphine drip for a while, along with some bolts and stuff in his leg. Anyway, in a roundabout way, thanks to me, the Air Force now includes mechanical bull on their list of risky/dangerous activities.